Okay, and you start with the first one. You say Jesus died by crucifixion is your first event you want to talk about, including your 6+1.
Of the six, I would say Jesus was crucified and died. The disciples had experiences that they believed were appearances of the risen Jesus. We're taking them right out of the list. Thirdly, this was proclaimed very early. We said James D.G. Dunn says months, which could have been the same year. Others say the same year. And it's a consensus view today that this all was on the ground and running by the time Paul came to Jerusalem, interviewed Peter and James, and that's +3. That's only 3 years. Bart Ehrman never gives a certain number that I'm aware of, but he lists a number of early sources, and he has at least 6, maybe 8, from his dating 1 to 2 years after the cross. So early is very, very important. So I'm going to get crucified, real experiences, proclaimed early. They turned the world upside down. And we mentioned this already, but just to repeat, I don't argue they all have to have died for their faith. I say the ones whose records we have about them going out there and turning the world upside down, especially the big four, Paul, James, the brother of Jesus, because James, the son of Zebedee, is already dead. He's killed. And Peter and John, the 4 of them, they're turning the world upside down by themselves in Jerusalem and beyond the world. And how do you know they were willing to die? Because they constantly put themselves in situations where, I don't want to say if they died, c'est la vie. I don't want to just say it's nothing. But they were more interested in proclaiming the data than they were as to what happened to them. All right, so that's 4. Crucifixion, experiences, early, turned the world upside down. And then 2 skeptics we've talked about. An insider skeptic, James, a family member. An outsider skeptic, Paul, PhD Old Testament, thought he was doing God a favor by imprisoning men and women, and he says himself, I don't even deserve to be called an apostle. By the way, right after he says that, it's right after the early creed in 1 Corinthians 15. In verse 11, he says, whether it is I or they, so we preach, and so you believe. Paul's saying, hey, you don't believe me? Ask Peter. Oh, you don't like Peter? Ask James. Ask John. We're all there in that meeting. They gave me the right hand of fellowship. We're all doing the same thing together. We're all preaching the same message. And that's very, very important, that unanimity, that early transforming the world unanimity. There's just nothing like this in the ancient world.